Many of the things we do in game are based around the idea of acting like the guy who's been high value his whole life, acting like the guy who's had good social feedback, right? And so a good shorthand for is this a high value behavior, is this good behavior in game, is ask yourself or imagine yourself as that guy. Game, loosely defined, I guess, is walking up to a girl or presenting yourself to a girl in various ways. It could be online, it could be through friends of friends, it could be a girl you meet in class, but presenting yourself to a girl in a way that makes you look desirable, that makes you look your best, that makes her want something from you, right? And you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it directly or whatever, but some like sales reference or sales metaphors, right? Game and sales are very similar, right? You could look at game as sales where your product is you, right? The product is your dick, right? Or maybe your wedding ring, depending on, what your...
Well, I'm not about marriage.
Okay, well, whatever. Or your long-term company associated with also your dick, right? But you're selling something, right? You're selling this experience of you and what you can bring to the table, whether it be kids or financial, as well as the experience, right? That's the package. That's what you're selling. And you have, billions of other men that are out there trying to sell a slightly different but similar package, and you have to differentiate yourself in a homogenous market, right? That's essentially what is game. But the question of what are the differentiators is a big problem that most guys have. Most guys are trying to differentiate on the wrong things. Most guys do not fundamentally understand female psychology. They don't understand what women are looking for. And so they're trying to sell a bunch of features women don't give a shit about. For the most part, women do not care about your resume. And they almost certainly don't care about your resume until they already like you for other reasons, right? So the kind of idea he was mentioning was the idea that people buy emotionally and justify logically, right? You see the thing you want, you have that desire for it, and then you think about, but it's a good buy because of this, and it'll retain its value because of this, and whatever, right? But the good, unless you're like investing, unless you're actually investing, not buying, the reason why you're making the decision is not based on the fundamentals. It's based on the emotions of I want this thing, and then justified by whatever fundamentals you can scrounge up. And it is the same with women deciding on men. And on its surface, this actually doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, right? Shouldn't women as logical, intelligent creatures be doing what is in their best interest? And they actually evolved to do so. They evolved to do what's in their best interest, but evolved is the key word. Because they're doing what was in their best interest hundreds of thousands of years ago or millions of years ago in the evolution of humanity or even the evolution of animals, because that's where their brain chemistry was developed, okay? And so when you're thinking about what is attractive to a woman, try not to think about this modern day society with like carpeted floors and air conditioning and, Teslas rolling around everywhere and shit like that, okay? That is not where women evolved. Women evolved on savannas of Africa and jungles all around the world and the icy north of Scandinavia and shit like that, right? And it's in that environment where the characteristics had to work, right? So think to yourself, what would be an attractive man? What would be a man fit to survive, pass genes along, and help the kids survive in that environment? And the things that would have been attractive there are the things that are attractive here. One of the biggest ones would be having a group of people that have your back, because the evolutionary environment was fucking brutal, right? I'm a little nerdy sometimes, so I've gone down different anthropological YouTube videos and then watched like down the rabbit hole and stuff like that. And there have been periods where like the vast majority of humanity was really struggling to survive, right? And if you didn't have a band of people to help you, you wouldn't survive. There's even a theory out there that if you didn't have a band of people and domesticated dogs at one point, you wouldn't survive as a human clan, right? We needed a lot of help. If you were one human on your own in a savanna full of like hyenas and lions, you're fucked, right? So having social support, having people that have your back, having people that like you and are willing to risk something for you is absolutely key. And that is a big reason why social proof, social alliances, being, some people call it like leader of men, why those type of things are so attractive, right? So why do women get attracted to bartenders, right? It's a very strange thing, right? All these guys with high status jobs, and then you have the woman like getting attracted to the bartender or the bouncer or whatever. Why? It's because the woman sees that person with everybody trying to get their attention and them being desired in that situation, and that triggers something in them, right? Everybody's trying to get this person's attention, him not caring, and then they're very appreciative when he finally gets around to them. That's attractive to a woman. Or bouncers at the door, you can come in, you can't come in. That's extremely attractive to a woman because it shows that you are the controller of those social alliances. And I already mentioned how social alliances are very important to humanity in general. It's 10 times as much to women because in order for a woman to pass her genes along, she has a 9-month period where she's somewhat incapacitated on top of everything else, right? She really, really needs the support of the group. And also her reputation within the group would lead to, who she can and can't mate with and stuff like that, right? So women care dramatically about social proof. So things that make you seem like you have that are very, very powerful. And there are things you can do that are direct or indirect to convey social proof. In the modern day, we can be like pseudo-famous in a lot of different ways, right? If you have an Instagram account that makes you look like you have an awesome life and have a lot of friends, that can help, possibly. And here's the key thing. It can help possibly. It depends how the girl finds out about it and how it is presented. With most positive, attractive qualities that you can bring up, if you're trying very hard to have the girl see it, you look lame and try hard. If the girl sees it by accident, you look fucking awesome, okay? So if I walk up to a girl and I'm like, hi, you should date me, I'm really rich. She'd be like, fuck off, go away, loser, right? Even if I am in fact very rich. I mean, there are a few gold diggers that will be like, okay, fine, yeah, you can line my pockets for a while. There are some girls that will opportunistically date you, but in terms of being actually attracted, you're not doing much for yourself. On the other hand, if the girl already likes you, is already like super down to sleep with you, you bring her back to your place, and you happen to have some nice things, now she's like, oh shit, jackpot, right? And even there, it's kind of funny because sometimes they'll say, oh shit, jackpot, you should take me on a date instead of sleeping with me tonight. Sometimes. I've had that happen. If you do things the right way, it shouldn't happen, but it can, right? But the point is, the possessions are a sign of value. Wealth and success is a sign of value, but it's how it is presented, right? And actually, speaking of how it is presented, and speaking of, like, you guys know, like, the lover-provider dichotomy? Is this new to you guys or something you guys are familiar with? Yes, and people know this? Yeah. Kind of. Basically, women will sleep with men for 2 reasons, right? They'll sleep with men to get the best genes, and then they'll say, whatever, I'll figure out how to raise the kids, or I'll have some other guy raise the kids of the guy with the good genes if need be. Or they'll have the guy that they sleep with and pass the genes along, and then he sticks around as a good father. And that's the dichotomy, right? Because the absolute highest quality genetics she could get, or highest status guy she could get, oftentimes doesn't have an incentive to stick around and raise the kids because he doesn't have to. He has so many women he could get. And so it's a risk. There's a big upside, but there's a big risk. On the other hand, the safe alternative who will stick around and raise the kids is almost by definition not the highest value guy she could get, because why would he stick around if he was, right? And so that's kind of the dichotomy, the lover-provider. When you have money or resources, which I think a lot of you guys here in San Francisco maybe do to some extent, you can present them as a fun experience, or you can present them as a logical commodity. If you present them as a logical commodity, you're going to very often end up in that provider dynamic where it's like, here, let me provide wealth and support to you in exchange for sex, right? As opposed to, let me have an amazing experience with you that has sex as part of it, and then, oh, as a bonus, I happen to have money. That second one is what I really recommend to you guys, right? It's going to be even in a long-term relationship where oftentimes if you're successful, you may be paying the bills in a marriage just because you have more money than she does. It's just better if it was set up without that being the case in the first place. It's much better if the emotions come first and the logic comes second. An honest signal is something that is hard to fake, all right? So I'll just give you guys some examples. We'll use you in the back because you came late. You get to be the example. I'm going to ask you the question. If I came up to you, you're a girl, I'm a guy. I come up to you and I have a witty pickup line. How much as a girl do you believe that conveys my true essence as a man? What I said in the witty pickup line I said in the first 10 seconds. Is that, do you have a holistic idea of how much value I have as a man? Do you believe it? Or is that just some gimmicky thing I said?
Some gimmicky thing.
Perfect, yeah. On the other hand, let's say you meet me and we hang out for a bit, and then we exchange contact information. You Google me, and my Google looks like I'm really successful and have a lot of shit going on for me and whatever. But what you found on Google, do you trust that? Do you think that's honest and believable?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, why? Why does that seem more honest than the pickup line?
Because it's coming from an external source.
Good, yeah, it's coming from an external source. That's one. And the two reasons. One is coming from an external source. Two, that existed independent of our interaction. So theoretically, I didn't create that in order to impress you, right? I created that because I created that. So there wasn't an agenda behind it, right? So those are the two things that make it very honest. One, it's coming from an external source instead of the person himself, and it doesn't seem to have an agenda. And those are actually connected. The reason why it's bad when it comes from you is because it seems to have an agenda, right? If you tell a girl all your best qualities versus your friend telling her your best qualities, which is a more honest signal? Friend. If that friend is female instead of male, which is a more honest signal? Female, right? And so there's this hierarchy of criteria that girls are looking for can you trust that this guy's actually legit? And something like social media is really funny because it is something that is treated as very honest in a way because it's similar to a Google search, it's similar to the internet, it's something you had independent of meeting them. But at the same time, it is weirdly easy to fake. So social proof is very, very powerful, which brings up a weird contradiction, or a weird paradox, let's say, not a contradiction, a paradox, which is what he asked, which is you walk up to a girl cold, she doesn't know you. It's not like you're walking up with like your social media broadcasting in the background, right? Or it's not like, have you seen like these like sci-fi dystopian things where like people have like their star rate, like Black Mirror people have their star rating like on their chest or shit like that. We don't live in that world. So she doesn't know your social proof in some tangible way when you walk up to her. So how can social proof pre-selection, since it is so powerful, how can that be used in-game? How can that be used to your advantage? And it's actually funny because pre-selection is still one of the most powerful things, but it's not direct proven pre-selection, it's implied pre-selection when you go talk to a girl. It's implied social proof. And what do I mean by that? Let's say, I'll pick on you for a second. Let's say we lived in like a small tribe. We live in a tribe of 30 people, right? I like to run my mouth. I like to tell people how amazing I am. I also, at the same time, am a really shitty hunter, really shitty fisher. I drop all the pots that other people make all the time, and I don't keep the fire well. And I run my mouth a lot. How am I going to do in that like small tribe? Are people going to like me very much? Not at all. Right. Are people going to punch me in the face a lot and like bash me in with like mammoth like bones? Probably, right? It's not going to work out very well for me. And what's that likely to do to my behavior? Yeah, it's likely to make me stop running my mouth. If every time I run my mouth I get my head bashed in, I'll probably stop running my mouth. Okay? On the other hand, we'll pick you. I still run. I'm another guy who runs my mouth. Different guy. I run my mouth. I am the best hunter in the whole fucking tribe. I provide meat to everybody. I'm also the best fisher in the whole tribe. Crazy enough, even though I'm multi-specializing. I'm also the best warrior in the tribe, right? And also, I know some medicine shit that nobody else in the tribe knows. Do I get to run my mouth? I do. I get to run my mouth. And you all can shut the fuck up about it. All right? Because I have proven competence. So, fast forward to the modern world. A guy seems very confident, almost delusionally confident. What does that say about what's happened to him in his life? Right? It implies that he's had good social feedback through his life. It implies that when he did act that way, he didn't get punished for it. And to be fair, it still does kind of work because most of us do live in small tribes growing up, right? If you're in a class at school of 20 kids, you are in a small tribe and there is that social feedback, right? And you do have to earn it. And if you do work at an office, and there's a small amount of people, you do have to earn it and you will get punished for your behavior. So it is still relatively honest. It still is relatively true, but it doesn't have to be. Because when you walk up to a girl and she's never met you before, you can be anyone you want to be, right? And she doesn't know. She only knows who you've been for her, right? An interesting metaphor for this would be like, imagine if you were an actor, right? And you're cast for your dream role. But the problem is, this role is not similar to how you act in real life. Would you take the role? Yes? Yeah, you would. And what would you do? You'd do a little thing called acting. You would act the role. And you would think about, if this had been my life, and if this was who I was, how would I act? And you would act and embrace and become essentially that person, right? And so you would act it. You would fake it till you make it. You would act as if. And there's nothing whatsoever keeping you from doing that here in real life in game, right? Because again, how you walk up to the girl is everything she knows about you. If you walk up and you seem like the guy who's had success with women his whole life, seem like the guy who expects her to like you, seem like the guy who's willing to say polarizing things without feeling like he's going to get punched in the face, that implies social proof. It implies how your life has been in the past. But, quick question, we'll go back to you in the back because you were the original one. Is that as strong still as if she Googled it and found it on the internet later? Which is stronger? Still not as strong, right? It's very strong. It's starting to become more honest, but it's not completely honest because you could be faking it. I just explained to you exactly how you would fake it, right? So it could be fake. So what does the girl do to guard herself against you faking? She tests you. When you go up and have, last time I'm gonna call you on you, I promise. If you come up and you have your gimmicky pickup line, how honest is that? Very dishonest or very honest? Pretty dishonest. If you give me shit about it and I handle that shit in the moment, surprised in a really awesome way, is that honest or dishonest? Much more honest, right? And that's where shit tests and passing shit tests comes in. And that's where, again, social proof, right? And so in a weird way, social proof is literally not present when you're talking to a girl cold. It's literally not there. But implied social proof is everywhere. And in fact, almost all the things we're doing in game, I don't know if almost all, many of the things we do in game are based around the idea of acting like the guy who's been high value his whole life. Acting like the guy who's had good social feedback, right? And so a good shorthand for is this a high value behavior, is this good behavior in game, is ask yourself or imagine yourself as that guy, right? Imagine yourself as the guy who growing up was the most popular kid in class every single year. And every time you went to a party, and I know a lot of you guys didn't go to parties. I didn't go to parties growing up. It's fair, right? But every time you went to a party, which you did go to the parties, because you couldn't not come to the party, because without you there, it wouldn't have been a fucking party, all right? But when you went there, all the girls were trying to sneak you off into closets and shit like that, right? And you had to decide, I can only sleep with like 2 or 3 girls at this party. I have to decide that, I can only come so many times during the party, right? All right, so like take the extreme view of the guy who has literally chased his whole life. How would that guy act, right? In fact, one of the guys I met in my entire life with like the best game without learning game, the reason he had good game, he was a youth professional soccer player in Europe, right? And he wasn't like famous yet. He didn't, like when he walked up to girls did not know who he was. But from the age of about 12 or 13, he and his teammates, when they were walking off the field, they had some female groupies and they were very popular. And so he just expected girls liked him for sex, and that was his normal way of living. That's how he had been his whole life. And that just oozed through all of his behaviors. And he thought of women as wonderful, fun things, but not something that he was worried about their validation in the least, or not something where he questioned whether they liked him in the least, right? Now, most of us have not been fortunate, or maybe, to be fair, maybe unfortunate for the long run, but most of us have not been fortunate enough to have that experience growing up. So we have to sort of act like it a little bit,